building control approval. Now, depending on the nature of the works you've done, some works do not necessarily need building control approval. In other words, it does not require a building inspector to review the works and to sign off the installation. If you've done something simple, it might be fine. Depending on the size and the type of extension you've done, you might just need a fire inspector to sign off that the building is safe and that the installation complies with the building regulations. Very, very important. Life safety is one of the things to be very careful about with existing buildings. These buildings were designed so many years ago. Unfortunately, the regulations for designing buildings from the perspective of fire particularly have changed. And so whenever you're doing an extension, one of the things that an engineer will try to inform you of are the responsibilities on your part to make sure that the works that you're doing will comply. So for example, if you put a dormer extension, it could be that you're now required to put some additional fire detection, prevention installations, just to make sure that additional space complies. So it's important when you view a property, you always go to the rear and look, just observe, and ask questions. So let me summarize today's session. Walls, windows, and doors. Sounds simple, sounds easy. The purpose, like I said in the previous session yesterday, was always go with a pen and a pad. And just take notes, make notes. Don't be overwhelmed by this information that I'm sharing. You do not need to have all of this information. You will remember, I've got this from the previous session. Forgive me because it has so much content, but let me draw your attention to what I call the flow diagram. I said the process and how the process normally works is you find a property, you make an offer, the offer is approved if you're using a bank, but also the offer is agreed by the seller. Then, because you're, in this case, assuming you're getting a mortgage, the bank will authorize a survey to be done. The survey will then identify any issues. The report is sent to you and the lender, and then the mortgage is approved, and then you can purchase. Everything I have explained so far in today's session will be covered to some extent, not all of it, but to some extent will be covered by the surveyor. A surveyor is not an engineer. A surveyor is simply someone who has been trained to survey buildings. It's a different accreditation, but also it's a different level of training. Most of what I've explained in relation to the external works, you need someone who is an engineer, a civil engineer, a structural engineer, a mechanical engineer, or someone who is a contractor, someone who works in construction, building construction, or building design and construction, someone who works either in project management in relation to buildings. They could explain much more. A surveyor will simply identify his visual survey or what he's seen, and then he'll point or he would make recommendations for you to then consult a specialist to get further information. In summary, although we've talked about the walls, and we've talked about the doors, and we've talked about the windows, I'd like you to just understand that when you do a viewing, it's meant to be a process for you to collect data. So here is my assignment for you and to you. For the next 2 to 3 days, I'd like you to just make a mental note. Every morning, as you walk down the street, just make observations of the buildings on your street, covering the areas that I've made reference to. Just in case you've forgotten, just as you walk down the street, just look and see, is it brick? Does it have pebble dash? Is it rendered? What's the quality of the rendering? What's the quality of the pebble dash? What's the quality of the brick? The windows, are they decorated? Just make some mental notes. And by doing that, what you'll find is that the words that I've been sharing so far, become part of your vocabulary. In other words, in order for you to make the right decisions in life, you do not need a high level of specialized knowledge. You just need to know either where to purchase the knowledge or where to lease the knowledge. And you can lease the knowledge by using someone I've been sharing with you. This is leasing. Or you can purchase it by actually instructing a professional on your behalf. But there's nothing as good as knowing what to look out for at the early stages. And the reason is because we identified at the end of this session that all of this works could cost you £4,000 to £6,000. If you were buying this property at 500 and you, as a result of this analysis, you discovered that you would pay almost an extra 50,000 for the repairs, suddenly it means that your purchase price is no longer 500, it's now 550 or 546. That could potentially change your decision to proceed with the purchase. Now, here is the point, and I'll conclude. In this flow diagram process, the survey will normally provide a report at this stage, so that's when you would know. But depending on the type of purchase you're making, there could be a long period that would have gone by, weeks, months. So you've spent all this time, you've paid for the survey, you've paid for the bank application for the mortgage, and then you discover that there's an extra 50,000 that you must spend to bring the building up to good standard. This is too late a time to find out that the investment is not for you. It's best for you to discover that at this point, which is the discovery. So the purpose of these videos that I've been sharing is to give you some information so that once you find a property, you can go through this process and you can decide for yourself whether you want to move forward with an offer before it's even approved. I hope that's been useful. Thank you.